Assalamu alaikum. Dear students of third year honors Department of English, Anandamohan College, I welcome all of you to my today's session. This is another class for you, in my previous class I had discussed one of the poems by John Donne, and today I have decided to continue the same poet. That means another poem by John Donne, and I am going to discuss that. And dear students, I hope all of you are fine, though the situation is not yet under control, though the situation is, unfortunately, the situation is becoming much more crucial, and it is very much unfortunate that for a long time we are suffering from such type of uncertainty, and we cannot come out from these difficulties, from these problems. So it is really tough to keep patience and to keep faith that better days will come, even then, as we don't have any other alternative. So it is our duty to think positive and to keep our optimism alive always. And dear students, I request all of you to keep you fit mentally and physically. Try your level best to keep you safe, and at the same time try to encourage other people surrounding you, so that all of us can overcome this situation, and ultimately after very soon we will be in the good situation, in the better days, by the grace of the Almighty. So it should be the hope of all of us. We should always be optimistic. So dear students, today my today's topic is the poem by John Donne, that is The Sun Rising. You know, this is also a famous poem by the world famous love poet John Donne. And you know, John Donne is considered as the world's greatest love poet, as well as a metaphysical poet. That means he is considered as a metaphysical love poet, and he was in between two ages, that is the Jacobean age and the Elizabethan age, and he is basically known as the poet of the 17th century. And you know, during the 16th century, the love poems, the conventional or the traditional love poems, in those traditional love poems, the lovers are highly worshipped. The beauty of the lovers were exaggerated, and the beauty of the beloved were exaggerated by the lover, and beloved were considered just like the goddess or the saint or something like that. But during 17th century, when a new trend of poetry, love poetry, that is the metaphysical school of poetry, was introduced, led by John Donne, they treat love from a different angle. They presented love poetry with a new flavor, with a new style, and that new style is called the metaphysical poetry. And a group of poets led by John Donne, they introduced this new style, and this metaphysical style is marked by the use of conceits, basically by the use of conceits, the use of wit, then learning, argument, use of argument, then elaboration, and at the same time passionate thinking. These were the basic characteristics of this new style of poetry, new type of poetry, that is considered as metaphysical poetry. And John Donne, he was at the center of that metaphysical school of poetry. And these metaphysical poets, they followed the characteristics that I have mentioned just now. They followed these characteristics in their poems, and basically they were the love poets. But at the same time, these metaphysical poets, they also deal with some abstract ideas in their poetry. For example, they also deal with soul, then death, then God, then spirituality. These were also the subject matter of the metaphysical poets. And basically John Donne, he is a metaphysical love poet. In all of his poems, we find love was at the center of his poetry. Then John Donne, he is considered as the world famous, as the greatest love poet, and he shows, his poetry shows the intense, passionate feeling, passionate mood, and also the his personal experiences of love. And he fell in love in his personal life. He fell in love with Annie More, and he eloped with Annie More, and finally he married her. But unfortunately, Annie Moore's father did not accept that marriage, and he also did not accept John Donne as his son-in-law. He was awfully angry with this relationship, and he sacked John Donne from his job for this crime. From his part, this was a crime, that is marrying his daughter as John Donne married married Annie Donne, that means Annie More. So Annie Moore's father considered this fact as a crime from his part, and he considered that for this crime John Donne should be punished, and he also imprisoned John Donne for this purpose, that means for marrying his daughter. And the conjugal life of John Donne and Annie Donne, that means Annie More, was so much pathetic, was so much miserable. They had 12 kids in their married life, but their married life was a very miserable one, because Annie Donne's father made the situation quite impossible for John Donne to manage any job for earning his livelihood. And throughout the married life, that means throughout the time up to when Annie Donne died, up to that time, John Donne and Annie Donne, they had to live on the support of their friends. That means they didn't have any earning. John Donne didn't have any job, and that's why they had to live on the financial favor from their friends. And in such a miserable situation, in such a miserable conjugal life, both of them were quite faithful towards each other, and their love never, they never feel the loss of love in their life. Though they were financially very much, their financial condition was very much poor, they were in a great financial crisis, but in their conjugal life there was no lack of love. They were rich in love. The love for each other, their love for each other was always were always very much, always make them very much rich. They were very much rich only with the wealth of love for each other. That is, up to the last date of Annie Moore's life, the two lovers, they were rich for their love for each other. They were financially poor, but mentally they were very much rich, and they were quite devoted towards each other. And this personal experience of love from John Donne's experience, from John Donne's part, made him the world famous love poet. And in a certain moment, John Donne wrote 2 lines of verse considering his personal life. He wrote, "John Donne, Annie Donne, undone." So these 2 lines make us aware about the financial crisis that they had to lead in their conjugal life. But after all, they were satisfied with each other. They were satisfied with the company of each other, and they were totally fulfilled with one another's company. That's why no pain could touch them. And John Donne, as a successful lover in his personal life, he ultimately produced the world famous love poems, and The Sun Rising is also one of them. In his love poems, the love poems of John Donne are not based on, from this discussion we can come to the point that the love poems of John Donne is not based on the conventions. Rather, these love poems are based on his own experiences, his own personal experiences. So Donne's poems are sometimes mingle with sensuality and finest wit. The language in his poems are colloquial rather than conventions, and his treatment of love differ from the contemporary concept of love, that is the concept of love that was popular in the Elizabethan age. Then his love changes from sensual to the spiritual. So if you go through the poems of John Donne, then you can easily find that the emotion of love in Donne's poetry changes from sensual love to spiritual love. Sometimes they touch. Sometimes even the poems of John Donne touch the height of mysticism. That is, the mystical height is also touched by his poems in some cases. And it is also true that all of his love poems are the metaphysical poems, as in his treatment of love he also followed all the characteristics of metaphysical poetry. That's why all the love poems of John Donne are at the same time the metaphysical poems, are considered as metaphysical poems. Then in John Donne's love poetry, we can very sharply detect the sharp three strains, and these three strains are cynical, then conjugal and platonic. That means if we study the love poems of John Donne, then we can find out the three different strains of his poetry, of his love poetry. That is cynical, then conjugal, and another one is platonic. And you know, cynical, that means in my previous class I had also discussed that in some of his poems John Donne's become very much what should I say, that is he becomes very much cynical about the attitude of women. At the same time, he also highly criticizes the frailty of man and the extramarital relationship made by them in some of his poems. So this type of cynicism is also noticed, is also found in some of his love poems. For example, in the last class I also mentioned that in some of his poems he also mentioned that throughout the world you cannot find a single woman who is at the same time beautiful and chaste. So this type of criticism, this type of cynicism is also found in some of Donne's poetry. Then Donne's love poems are also platonic in some cases. That means in some of his poems you will notice that Donne treats love as something immortal. His treatment of love is presented before us as something spiritual. Sometimes he treats the love emotion or the feeling of love as something spiritual, as something which is based on the spirituality, which is immortal, which does not die, which does not extinguish with the passage of time. So from that angle we can consider those love poems as platonic love poems. And the final one is conjugal. That is, in maximum cases Donne treats love from the conjugal viewpoint. That is, conjugal love is highly celebrated in Donne's poetry, and this pursuit was just to it was just because Donne sought to find heaven in the conjugal love. When you will go through his poems, you will feel that Donne really tries to sought the heaven in the conjugal life, and for that reason, in Donne's love changes from lustful to cynical, and finally he tries to find out heaven in the conjugal love. So these are the variation of his treatment of love throughout his poems. So in our today's poem, and another point is also noted here, that is, in Donne's love poetry he always tried to make a union between the soul and flesh. That is, he always tried to make an equal balance between the body and the soul. And through this, the combination of the body and soul, love can create the ecstasy. That is, the ecstatic feeling of love can be attained through the combination of body and soul. This was the belief of John Donne, and we usually find this in his poetry. So in our today's poem, that is The Sun Rising, this is another successful love poem by John Donne, and 3 stanzas are there in this poem. I am not going through all the lines. I am just trying to tell you about the synopsis of each of the stanzas. So in the first stanza, the poet is addressing the sun, as the title of this poem is The Sun Rising. So you can say that, you can easily feel that this poem is about the rising sun. That means just at the time of dawn, just at the time of sun rising, the poet is addressing the sun, and he is at the very beginning of the poem, the poet is very much angry. He is at a very angry mood. He was quite annoyed with some sort of disturbance. And the situation is that the poet with his beloved, they were in a single room, and they were quite devoted with each other. Their only devotion was making love with each other, and this single emotion, that is love making, was the complete concern of this lover and the beloved. That is, except this single emotion, love making, this lover and beloved were quite unaware about the rest of the world. They were totally indifferent. They were totally that means separated from the rest of the world, from the interest of the rest of the world. They were only confined within the single emotion, that is to become attached with each other, to be confined within each other, to be confined within the thinking of each other. So these two are the whole world for them. Except these two, the rest of the world is meaningless for the lover and the beloved. And in such a situation, when they were only confined within their own thinking, within their own emotion, within the single emotion, that is love making, in such a situation, when the morning rays, that means the rays of the sun, the first rays of the sun enters into their room, penetrating the glass of the window, penetrating the curtain of the window, they felt disturbed. Both of them felt disturbed. The poet, as the speaker of the poem, he is addressing the sun with a very rude mood, with a very angry mood. He is addressing the sun and rebuking the sun for disturbing them. That is, they were so confined within their own world that any other entrance, any kind of entrance from any other part is a kind of disturbance for them. So when the rays of the morning sun enters into their room, the lover, he is very much disturbed and he is very much annoyed. So he is rebuking the sun for disturbing them, for disturbing their emotion, for disturbing their devotion towards each other. And the poet is advising the sun not to disturb them and rather to do its duty towards the rest of the world. And the poet says that the sun should go to raise those people, raise the late schoolgoers, as they are becoming late for their school. The sun should make the people conscious, the people of the real world, the people of the realistic world. The sun should make them conscious to get ready and to start their duties, start their materialistic duties. So the sun should go to the rest of the world except this lover and beloved. the sun should not disturb this lover and beloved. Rather, the sun should perform its duty of awakening the rest of the world to make them aware about starting their daily business. And in the last portion of this stanza, the poet says, for the lovers, there is no counting of time. The lovers are never ever bothered with the counting of time, because for the lovers, time is just like static. Time does not change. Time never changes for the lovers. For the lovers, everything, every situation is static. That is, their only duty is love making. Their only duty is to thinking about each other, and accept that duty, accept that feeling. They don't have anything to do. That's why the counting of hour, the counting of second, the counting of days or months, the changing of season, the changing of climate does not matter for the lover and beloved. The lover and beloved does not think about the changes of time. So time always remain the same for the lover and beloved. That means it is always spring for the love makers. For the lover and beloved, the climate or the season always remains as the spring. It never changes. So they are never ever bothered with the changes of time. So the sun should not come to the lovers, and the sun should not disturb the lovers in making love. So this is all about the first stanza. Then come to the second stanza. In the second stanza, the poet is rebuking, again he is rebuking or threatening the sun, saying that the sun is very much boastful about its own power, The sun, maybe the sun is very much proud of its own strength, of its own power, of its own brightness. But the poet is thinking that in comparison to the brightness of the poet's beloved's eyes, the brightness is nothing. The brightness of the sun is nothing. That is, the poet, according to the poet's feeling, according to the poet's judgment, the brightness of the poet's beloved's eyes are always superior to the brightness of the sun, and the brightness of the sun can be easily defeated by the poet's beloved's eyes brightness. So he says that the sun should not be very much boastful about its own power or of its own brightness. And again the poet says that even the poet can easily blow out the brightness of the sun, and if we just make a single wink of his eye, then ultimately the sun will be covered with the darkness. So we also can feel the situation, that if you just close your eye, then in front of you all of the lights, bright light of the sun will be dark. That is, when we close our eyes, the brightness of the sun becomes dark. So the poet is also saying so, that is, the sun should not be very much proud of its own brightness, because the poet can, in a single moment, the poet can make it dark by making a wink of his eye. But the poet is not prepared to do so. The poet is not willing to do so. That means he is not willing to bring about a shadow on the brightness of the sun, because he never ever is willing to miss a single sight of his beloved. If he winks his own eye to blacken the sun, to bring about a dark shadow on the brightness of the sun, then at the same time he will also miss the sight of his beloved's face, of his beloved. So this will be a great miss for the poet. So he is not going to make a single wink of his eye with the fear of losing the single sight of his beloved. So he always wants to look at the beauty of his beloved, and he is not willing to make any winking of his eye, so that he can always continuously he can see or he can enjoy the beauty of his beloved. And in the last portion of this stanza, the poet says that the brightness of his beloved's eye is so powerful, is so strong that even it can blind the sun, even it can easily make the sun blind. And then he says that if after seeing the glory or the brightness of the poet's beloved, if the sun is yet has its eyesight, if it is not yet been blinded, then the poet says, please go to the rest of the world and visit the rest of the world, whether the valuable places of the world are there or not, whether the valuable Indies, that is the two Indies, West Indies and East Indies, whether these two Indies, that means the rich two Indies, that means the West Indies and the East Indies, according to the poet's description, these two Indies are famous for their gold mine and their spices. So these are the valuable places in the world. So the poet says that the sun should go to visit those two Indies, whether they are on their exact place or not, whether they are there or they are now vanished, they are now absent there. So this is from the point of view that the poet considers that in this single room of the lover and beloved, the whole world's wealth are there. This single room is the center of the interest for the whole world. This is only from the poet's viewpoint. According to the poet, from his own viewpoint, from his own judgment, he considers that all the wealth, all the resources of the whole world, all the valuable places of the whole world, all the treasures of the whole world are now locked up in this single room, in this bedroom of the lover and beloved. Because for this lover and beloved, the rest of the world is meaningless. All the significance, all the values, all the importance from the lover and beloved's point of view are now exist in this bedchamber, as the lover and beloved are present here. So from the part of the lover and also from the part of the beloved, only they two are meaningful in this world. Only these two are the significant in this world. Except these two, the rest of the world is meaningless. So the valuable places of the world or the valuable wealths of the world or the most significant things in the world are quite meaningless for the lover and beloved. And for them, only the presence of these two are the most important and the most significant things in this world. So as the lover and beloved are now confined in this bedchamber, so this bedchamber has become the center of all interest from their point of view. And that's why the poet is saying to the sun that you please go to visit the valuable places of the world, whether they are there or not, because the poet thinks that all the valuable places of the world are now within this bedchamber. That means all the interest of the world are now within this bedchamber of the poet, because his beloved is there. His beloved is considered as the whole world for the poet. From the beloved's part, the lover is considered as the whole world for the beloved. And that's why as they two are now present in this bedchamber, so the whole world is now this room. This bedroom is considered as the whole world for the lovers. Then come to the third stanza, that means the final stanza of this poem. The poet says that there are lots of princes in this world, there are lots of states in this world, and those princes are performing their valuable duties, their important duties for running their states. Whatever they are doing, that's nothing than imitating the action of the lover and beloved. That is, as the lover and beloved, they consider that this single bedroom is the whole world for them. Except this bedroom, the whole world does not make any sense to them. The whole world is meaningless for them. That's why they consider that whatever important work, whatever significant work may be done by the rest of the world, by the people of the rest of the world, by the kings and princes of the rest of the world, that does not make any sense for the lover and beloved. For them, this single room is the whole state, is all states of the world. For the poet says that she is all states. That is, for the poet's part, the beloved is considered as the whole state of the world. All the states of the world are now considered as the beloved. That means the beloved is considered as all the states of the world for the poet. And all princess I. And the poet also says that from the beloved's part, the lover, that means the poet is considered as all the princes of the world. That means except the poet, except the lover, no other princess of the world is meaningful for the beloved. Nothing else is. That means except these two, nothing else in this world exists from their viewpoint. Then in the last portion of this stanza, the poet says that he claims that the sun has only half of their happiness. That is, the happiness that this lover and beloved possess, the sun possesses only half of that happiness, because this lover and beloved, they make a combination of completeness. They have completed. That is, the lover and beloved combinedly, they are a complete single unit, and a completeness is made by the union of the lover and beloved. But the sun exists only during the daytime. At night, the sun is invisible, the sun is absent. So it covers only the half portion of a complete day-night time. That is, during 24 hours, the sun only possesses or only performs his duty for the half portion of a complete day and night, complete 24 hours tenure. The sun only continues its duty for the half time. That's why the sun possesses only half of the happiness. But the lover and beloved, combinedly they consist a complete unit. That's why their happiness is double of the happiness of the sun. Now again the poet advises the sun that as the sun has become old, and it is so because the poet considers that the sun is as old as the earth. The sun is as old as the earth. It started its journey from the journey of the earth. That's why the sun has already get old. It is now Azad. It is now old. So as the old people get tired, as the old people get weary, so in the same way the poet says that as the sun also get old, so it also takes rest. It also need to take rest. And for that reason, the poet is instructing the sun, the poet is advising the sun, as you are old and you need rest, so you should not go to visit the whole world for performing your duty. You should not revolve round the whole earth to perform your duty. It is your duty to warm the earth, to provide the rays of the sun to the earth, and you should do that duty. But as you are now old, that's why you should not travel throughout the whole world for performing your duty. Rather, you can stay here in our single room, in this bed chamber of the lover and beloved. The sun can easily stay here, and the sun can consider this single room as the whole world, and this bed can be the center of the sun's revolving. This bed can be the center of the sun's revolving, as the bed is at the center of the room. So if the sun can consider this room as the whole world, then the bed can be considered as the center of this world. And from this center, it can warm up the lover and beloved. It can produce its ray to illuminate this room of the lover and beloved, and it will ultimately serve the purpose of warming the whole world and also illuminating the whole world. As earlier the poet has already mentioned that this single room is the complete world for him. This single room of the lover and beloved is the complete world for him, and they too have made the complete world. Except this lover and beloved, except this bedroom, there is nothing else exists in this world from the lover and beloved's concept. So from their viewpoint, this single room is the whole world. So if the sun can warm this single room, then ultimately it will perform its duty of warming the whole world. As from the poet's viewpoint, this single room is the whole world, as nothing is valuable, nothing is significant for the lover and beloved except them two. So this is all about this poem, and the poet, through this description of love making, of the treatment of the lover and beloved, the poet has ultimately presented this single issue that for the lover and for the beloved, this love making is the most significant and the only important issue of the world, and from their viewpoint, these two are the whole world. They are considered as the complete world. Nothing else exists for them, nothing else is important for them. So throughout the poem, only the love emotion, only the exaggeration of love, and also the argument in favor of establishing the supremacy of love is presented here. So we can say that it is a successful love poem, at the same time a metaphysical love poem, because metaphysical concepts are also used here. So dear students, after completing this poem, I want to say you something about the metaphysical conceit. That is also a very important point of the metaphysical poem. So you know, conceit is a literary term, is a literary figure, and it is usually used in the metaphysical poetry. So conceit is a kind of comparison, and about this type of comparison, two other figures are also known to you, that is simile and metaphor. These are also comparison, and conceit is also comparison, but the difference is that when you will say about the comparison in case of simile, then the comparison will be between two similar things. In case of metaphor also, the comparison will be between two similar things. But in case of conceit, there will also be a comparison, but the comparison will be made between two dissimilar things, two remote things, apparently totally impossible to compare. In apparent sense, the comparison will be absurd. That is, a comparison will be made between two dissimilar things, and that will be established. The comparison will ultimately be established through providing logical arguments. That is called conceit. So in this poem, when the poet says that the bed is the center of the world, and the walls of the room are the two spheres, the two walls of the room are the two hemispheres of the world. So apparently these are not similar. The wall and the hemispheres quite different, quite what should I say, quite remote. The comparisons are quite remote. Even then, when the poet provides the logical argument, that is for the lover and beloved's viewpoint, they too are the complete world. The single room where they exist, this is the whole world for them. and except this room, except their existence, nothing make any sense for them. They are completely devoted towards each other. That's why they are thinking so. Then we can accept this type of comparison, that the bed chamber of the lover and beloved, that can be considered as the complete world, and the bed is the center of this world, and the two walls are the two hemispheres of this world. So after this type of argument, we can accept this type of comparison. So this is called a metaphysical conceit. And this type of metaphysical conceits, lots of metaphysical conceits are usually used by the metaphysical poets in their poem. And as John Donne is a metaphysical love poem, so in his love poems he has used the metaphysical conceits. So this is all about my today's class. Dear students, I hope when you will go through the poem, you can enjoy the poem. Then in our next class, I hope I will start a new topic, and we have already discussed many of the topics. Then if the situation continues for a long time, then in another class, see you in another class. Up to then, I hope all of you will keep you safe, and you will be in sound health and in sound mind. Thank you.